Hello, everyone, and welcome to Your Healthy Dose. This is a podcast about current trends in healthcare. I'm your host, Kim Douglas. Welcome, everyone. So you may or may not know that November is Lung Cancer Awareness Month, and I am very excited and privileged to have with me here today Dr. Robert McKenna, and you're going to break down the latest on lung cancer and what we need to know. So, Dr. McKenna, you're a board-certified thoracic surgeon who pioneered minimally invasive lung cancer surgery. You've taught many thoracic surgeons around the world how to perform this surgery, and with nearly 30 years of experience, Dr. McKenna is well respected in the medical community for his clinical and research contributions. Welcome, Dr. McKenna.
Thank you.
Happy to have you here. So, are you up for playing a game?
Sure.
Okay, let's play a game. It's called, I made it up.
Okay.
It's called Truth, False, or somewhere in between.
Okay.
Okay, first question. I smoke a pack a day for 15 years straight, but I stopped, so I don't need to be worried about lung cancer anymore.
I hope you're not really talking about you having a history of smoking.
Oh my gosh, never.
For many years, people would say that as long as you quit smoking after about 12 years, then you don't have any higher risk of getting lung cancer. But it turns out that's not true. A few years ago, it just seemed like there were a lot of people that did the right thing. They were told, don't smoke, it's bad for you, it causes cancer. And they got the message, they quit smoking, and they still got lung cancer. So I looked at 700 of my patients that had lung cancer, that had a history of being a former smoker, but they had quit. 38% of the people who were former smokers with lung cancer had gotten lung cancer even though they quit at least 20 years before. So that's a huge number.
That really is.
It's a really bad thing. Smoking is the stupidest thing that was ever invented.
I agree. And I think Hollywood is partly to blame, but that's a whole other show.
Yeah, the government's to blame too.
Yes,
a lot.
You're right. Vaping, which I do a lot of, causes lung cancer. Not me, but we're doing the game.
Yeah, probably. There's not a lot of great data yet for vaping and lung cancer. And as we get a few more years of history, we'll, I'm sure, have some pretty good evidence. There certainly are bad things. It just depends on what you vape. But there certainly are some very toxic chemicals in the vaping solution that people vape.
I'm smoking marijuana, and this.
Stop.
And it's not me. I mean, this is the game.
Okay.
And it can lead to lung cancer.
Yes.
Wow.
So for a while, people would say, well, nobody smokes a pack of marijuana cigarettes a day, so it's not the same volume as people that smoke tobacco, so that maybe it's okay. Well, that's not true. With more follow-up on that, if you smoke one joint a day, every day for a year, you increase your risk of getting lung cancer 8% every year.
Every year?
Every year. So it's just not smart to smoke anything. Pick a different vice, but
exactly.
Not smoking.
Lung cancer can be hereditary.
There's a lot of work going on that. We're trying to figure it out. For some of the other cancers, there's better family and genetic data. I had one family where 8 brothers and sisters all got lung cancer, and they all smoked to get it too. So it's a combination of those things. But certainly it's just not good. What is it that makes 1 out of 8 smokers get lung cancer? Why don't 7 of the other 8 get it? Don't really know. Why do some families, why are they so good at getting lung cancer or strokes or heart attacks? We're working on trying to figure that out.
Well, that leads me to the last question in the game, and that is, when you said the 8 family members, I thought this must tie into this. Secondhand smoke causes lung cancer.
It does. There are about 240,000 Americans that get lung cancer each year, and it's about 1,500 or so that get it from secondhand smoking.
Wow, so secondhand smoke really is damaging as well.
But if you really want to get lung cancer, be somebody that actually smokes, and then you can join that 240,000.
Forget it. Thank goodness I never picked up a cigarette. So, and now we've got you to tell us all about that. So, the most common cause of lung cancer is smoking that we've talked about right now.
Right, 80%.
80?
80.
So, talk about the second most common, which I understand is radon gas.
Right. So we've learned more and more about that over the last few years, and it does seem that about 2 or 3% of people, maybe even higher than that, get lung cancer from being exposed to the radon.
And would that be, I remember we bought a house, my husband and I, and somebody beforehand had done had checked out an inspection.
Right.
And they said there was some radon that the house was built on, and they backed out of buying the house.
Right.
I hate to tell you this, but we went forward with it. Would that be the same if the house is built on?
Well, it's pretty easy to investigate that.
Mm-hmm.
Go to Lowe's and buy for $15 a kit.
Right.
That can determine if you have radon gas in your house.
Okay.
And it's fairly simple. They're contractors that can go to your house and put a little fan in the basement, blow the radon. So there are ways to get the radon out of the house.
But that isn't really spoken of that much. I mean, we all hear about smoking, but not the radon. So that's really interesting that you bring that up. So how do you screen for lung cancer? And at what age do you, Dr. McKenna, recommend that someone starts their screening?
The most important thing for screening is to find the group of people that are high risk to get lung cancer.
Okay.
And screening is so important for all cancers. The 5 most common types of cancer would be breast and colon cancer and prostate and lung. And for the other ones, there have been good screening tests done starting a few decades ago to the point where the other 4 types of cancer have 5-year survivals around 90%, which is great. We're making good progress in some types of cancer. But we were way behind in getting the screening done for lung cancer. And then finally, about 10 years ago, there was a randomized prospective study that was published in the New England Journal that showed if you do screening with chest CT versus no screening, that you reduce the mortality rate for lung cancer by 20%.
Wow.
And that's made a difference for 5-year survival as well. For the longest time, the 5-year survival was only 12% or so for lung cancer, whereas these other cancers were doing so much better than we were. With the new targeted chemotherapy and with the screening that's done, we're making progress. It's up to 26% according to the American Cancer Society. So we're not 90% yet, but we're certainly making a big jump forward. And many of the targeted chemotherapies and things that we're doing to treat it and the screening are making a big difference.
Sure, it sounds like it. So smoking really is, at least we hear this, one of the hardest addictions to overcome.
Right.
So what do you tell your patients about prevention?
I tell them it's the stupidest thing that was ever invented. They really need to quit and to just pick a different vice. So the people that should be screened are people 50 to 80 years of age that smoked 20 pack years. So any combination of number of years and how many packs you do. So 2 packs a day for 10 years or half a pack a day for 40 years. However you want to hit those magic numbers, it's that group of people. And they have also included that the risk of getting lung cancer does decrease if you cut back on smoking.
Okay.
So they've said that as long as you smoked at least a cigarette in the last 20 years. But like what I said just a couple of minutes ago, I wrote that paper and looked at 700 of our patients with lung cancer, and they got the message. They quit smoking. They did the right thing. And at least 20 years later, they still went on to get it. So no, pick a different vice.
I love that. I love how clear you are about it. So Dr. McKenna, I wanted to share with you something personal. I had breast cancer. I never smoked in my life, never picked up a cigarette. And they found when they opened me that under all the layers of breast tissue that I had 3 1.5 centimeter tumors against my chest wall. And I wondered, could that have turned into lung cancer? And how does someone like me who's never smoked get lung cancer?
That should not have anything to do with turning into a lung cancer. The issue, though, is if you get CAT scans on everybody, 1 in 3 people will have something in the lung. Only 1% of the time are they cancer. So there are a lot of subtleties in trying to figure out who should get screening, who doesn't need to get screening. There are many different sizes and shapes of masses in the lung. So you need to know about all those different sizes and shapes to know who to worry about and who you don't worry about. One of the causes of lung cancer that doesn't really get much publicity is radiation. So I've operated on 59 women who had breast cancer and had radiation as part of the treatment for their breast cancer, and they're alive and well from that point of view. So that's great. But the downsides to that is there are 59 people who got lung cancer because of the radiation treatment. So we have to figure out who to screen for that. My wife is one of those.
So wait, all 59 of the women
had breast cancer, and part of the treatment was radiation treatment.
And all 59
and those 59 got lung cancer because of radiation that have them alive and well and no sign of any recurrent breast. But the downside is that it can have side effects.
And your recommendation would be after year 5?
After 5 years out, I think you need to keep that in mind, and screening, I think, is a reasonable thing to do.
To ask for a CT scan.
Yeah.
So other types of lung cancer, let's get into. I did not know this. What is ground glass opacity, and what makes it different from lung cancers in the past? And should we all be worried about this?
It is different. We all should be worried about it, but in particular, women should be worried about it. So ground glass is different. It happens in women much more than in men. We don't really understand what it is. People started thinking maybe it's related to a virus. It seemed to be happening earliest in Japan compared to other parts of the world. It's called ground glass because that's what it looks like. The ground glass appearance, hazy gray color. And it's not related to smoking. And women are much better at getting that than men are. And we don't know how to screen for it. I told you the indications for screening. We haven't figured out what that is yet for finding people who are at risk for ground glass. So we keep working on that. It seems to run in families a little bit. Certainly women get it more often than men do. And we see a lot. I'm in clinic all day, a couple of days each week. And there's several people every day that I see that have that ground glass opacity. The one good thing about it grows a lot slower than other type of lung cancer, the ones related to smoking.
Okay.
And there are some people who get that where it just remains dormant for years and doesn't progress on to be a more aggressive tumor and shorten your life. So there are a lot of things that we're learning about it.
Yeah, I haven't heard that term, so it seems like it's fairly new.
Right.
And I think you answered this already. You said the women in Japan, is that what you
Right.
said? So that's the demographic that might be more at risk,
Right.
or women in general, you said.
Yes, Asian women, yes.
And you don't have to smoke.
They generally don't smoke. It's
smoke.
unusual for someone with ground glass lung cancer to smoke or have a history of smoking.
Well, let's talk a little bit about you and your background. I know that you have a beautiful granddaughter named McKenna.
I got 2.
Oh, well,
I have to say that I got 2 daughters with grandchildren, or the other daughter will be very upset.
exactly. So we're going to mention them both equally. Yeah. And when you met your lovely wife, you told her that you weren't going to be just another surgeon that could take out a gallbladder. And in 1992, you performed the first minimally invasive lung cancer surgery in the world.
Right.
I'd say you lived up to that statement to your wife. Does she feel the same?
I hope so.
Oh, she's nodding her head. Okay, all's good. So let's talk a little bit about the surgery and why it was such a groundbreaking feat.
In about 1930, began thoracic surgery doing major chest operations. That was done through incisions that were 8 to 10 inches in length. It hurts a lot when you make that big of an incision, when you cut the ribs, when you spread them open in order to do the operation. So in the mid-1980s, companies started making devices and equipment to be able to do minimally invasive operations like gallbladder operations. Then they made a stapler. So we thought, well, in thoracic surgery, we can use a stapler and do some procedures. And I started doing that. But it didn't make sense to limit what you did to just a wedge resection of lung tissue. We needed to use the new toys to be able to do the full extent of the type of procedures that we do. So I do 95% of my lung operations through little incisions in a TV camera and looking up at the TV screen. And it makes a big difference. The mortality rate is lower. The complication rate is lower. Patients get home from the hospital faster. The recovery is easier. I've got a couple men who played golf a week after they had their major lung surgery, or a couple that played tennis 5 days later. I told a woman who plays tennis that I had two men that played tennis 5 days after their operation. So she had to play tennis 4 days post-op.
I love her.
Yep.
I want to meet her. So Dr. McKenna, what inspired you to become a doctor?
There's a long answer to that question. It's sort of familial. I went to my father's graduation from Cornell Med School when I was 12 days old. My mother was a neonatal intensive care unit nurse. My wife was a neonatal intensive care unit nurse. Her mother was. Her father was a pediatrician. We have a daughter who's an NP and a daughter who's a PA. So it's just, there's no other job, is there? It's just kind of in the way. And my father did a lot of very good things about lung cancer. He's the one that got the tobacco ads off TV. He set up a lot of lung cancer or cancer tumor board around town. He was president of the American Cancer Society for a couple of years.
Well,
so he did a lot of good things.
Good. And you are too. And what made you come to St. John's?
I think it's a great hospital. The people are good people and care a lot about what they do. They take great care of our patients. So I was the chief at another hospital for 20 years and then came over here and brought my patients over with me. And I hear over and over again that they're very happy that we're here and that they get great care here.
Well, you know, after every episode that we do, my last question to my guests is always, if there's just one thing that our viewers should take from today's discussion, and I think I know what's going to be, what would it be?
Well, it's not just one thing, but it's the things that we talked about. You know, to quit smoking is so important. If nobody in this country ever smoked, half the hospitals in the country would close. We'd eliminate half of the disease that people have. So quit smoking, do the right thing, get screened if you do have a history of smoking.
Wonderful.
And that makes a great big difference.
Yeah, I love what you said. I think it's so important. I think more people should be saying that. Well, that's just about all the time we have. I know that Dr. McKenna needs to get to watch the USC game and get with his two granddaughters.
Exactly.
So we're going to have to wrap up, unfortunately. But it has been a pleasure. And I just want to thank everybody at the St. John's Health Center Foundation for making this podcast possible. And thank all of you for joining us today on Your Healthy Dose. Until next time, I'm Kim Douglas.